Hey, how's it going? Eddie here with Guitar Mastery Method. We help thousands of guitar players all around the world, just like you, take your guitar playing to the next level. And today we're going to be talking about a way that you can really jazz up your 12-bar blues rhythm. Now, when you're playing 12-bar blues, a lot of times, kind of the tried and true default thing to do as a guitar player is to play like the cowboy blues riff, right? Like the... And that's all fine and good, but a lot of times I see guitar players play that as if that's the only thing that you can play when you're playing the blues. The truth is there's a whole universe of other things that you can play other than that. And the point of this video is to introduce you to a concept called comping or accompaniment. Comping is a technique frequently used in jazz music. And even if you're like, jazz, no, there's still a lot of great benefits you can get from understanding this concept. And blues and jazz do interconnect in a lot of ways. And if you think about a lot of great guitar players out there that sort of have this beautiful hybrid of blues and jazz in their style of playing. I think of guys like Michael Landau or Matt Schofield or Robin Ford. A lot of these jazzy blues guitar players, even Gary Moore as well. There's really no reason that the two should not intersect in some kind of way. And so this concept, this comping, right, is when you apply it to blues music, can really open up a whole new realm of possibilities on what you can do when you're playing blues rhythm. So let's say you're in a situation where you're jamming with a band and there's another guitar player, okay? And that other guitar player is holding it down with the cowboy blues rhythm. Right? That's great. They're taking care of that. What are you going to do? You're definitely not going to play the same thing, right? That's just redundant and boring. And you're definitely not going to solo the whole time because you shouldn't do that, right? You shouldn't overplay. But what you should do is accompany what the other guitar player is doing. So in this case, if we have the other guitar player taking care of the cowboy blues riff, this would be the perfect thing for you to play on top of that. So let me show you these two chord shapes that I'm working with. And the cool thing is they're kind of like inversions of one another, okay? So the first chord shape that I'm doing, and keep in mind, this is just going to be 3 notes, right? Each shape is going to be 3 notes. Starting with, so this is essentially we're in the key of A, by the way. All right? So same as, it's the key of A. So we're going to be taking a A7 triad, right? So triad is just a collection of 3 notes, right, that make up a chord. But we're not playing like, you could almost look at it like if you know what a bar chord is, right? Like an A7 bar chord, that'd be the whole bar chord. This triad is just a little piece of it. So we're just taking a little piece of it. And that's all we need. If you think about real band etiquette, you don't want to be playing the lower notes because bass players got that. And the higher notes, let's say you got a harmonica player or you got a keyboard player or something. If you're in a situation like that as a guitar player, you really want to focus on this little pocket here. Okay? And that way you won't get any dirty looks from anyone else in the band, right? So what we're doing is with this shape here, this A7 triad shape, starting with my first finger on the 5th fret of the D string. My 3rd finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the G string, right? And then my first finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the B string. Those 3 notes. Now what I was doing is I was sliding into them from a fret below, and that just gives it a nice effect. Right? Just kind of keeps it moving, So that's it. It was literally starting that chord a fret below, playing it, and then sliding it up kind of quickly. All right. Now, what I also like to do, just to add a little bit more nuance to it, is to kind of mute it. As soon as I slide up, then I mute it, right? And that kind of gets ready for the next part, which I would just kind of hold out the chord a little longer. All right, so it just makes it much more dynamic. So you got your little, and then, so let me show you this second chord shape here. You can look at it as like the literal inverse of what I'm doing here, right? So we have our A7 shape here, right? And we're essentially going to start here. So it's like we're taking that sort of triangle shape with our fingers and we're moving it here. So I have my second finger on the 7th fret of the D string, My first finger is on the 6th fret of the G string, and my third finger is on the 5th fret of the B string. Those 3 notes right there. So this whole time we're just going to be on the D, G, and B strings, right? So we have. Now what I like to do is I like to slide up to that from 2 frets down, and then slide back down 2 frets. So it's essentially, it's like you want to think of it like the chords breathing, like, like breathing and sighing, So what we're doing is I'm starting with my second finger on the 5th fret here, and I got my first finger on the 4th fret, my third finger on the 5th fret here on the D, G, and B strings, and I'm sliding up 2 frets, right? So I'm sliding up the 7, 6, and 7 here, then sliding back down to the original position, which was 5, 4, 5. And I like to let that ring. So I'll just strum it once. And just kind of let it sustain. Like that right there is a very, that's something I picture a horn section playing, right? So you're kind of covering, a bunch of bases here. If you're just playing in a group where, let's say, you don't have a horn section and you have another guitar player, right? So this is a way that you can really fill the space that will just make the entire band mix that much better. Or even if you're jamming with just one other guitar player and they're doing the cowboy blues thing, then you can totally just throw that on top. Okay, so let's review the whole thing real quick. We're sliding up from 1 fret below, starting with the A7 triad here, right? Okay. Now this is the most important chord of the 2 because this is essentially, you could look at this as like, this is like the actual chord itself, right? We're in the key of A. So this is like the A7 chord, right? That's playing. And then the second chord, even though it does like work, it's a type of A chord, but it's got some colorful notes and stuff in it. So it works as a way to kind of complement the main chord in this case, which is A7. Okay, so we're sliding up from a fret below, and then, so we're sliding up, choking it, right? And then we'll start with the inverted shape, right? The inverted triangle shape. So it's like you have this triangle, and then you have this triangle. So making weird hand signs, but this is what it looks like, right? So just like that, right? Now, here's the best part. You now know, like, that's all you have to learn in terms of what you're actually playing over the entire progression. All we're going to have to do now is move it. So, in a blues progression, we have the 1 chord, right, in this case, which is A, right, A7. Then we have a 4 chord and a 5 chord. So the 4 chord is D7 and the 5 chord is E7. So we're going to do this exact same pattern, this exact same thing we just learned, and we're just going to shift it up to a different part of the neck and then play it there. So I'll tell you how I'm able to find, so let's say if regardless of what key you're playing or what chord you're trying to find, if you're trying to find how to play what we just learned over any chord, start with finding the root note on the low E string. So in this case, 5th fret of low E is A. The note is A. So we know that, right, this is where it lives. This is home, okay? Here's the A7 triad over the A. So now we know the next chord, the 4 chord, is a D7 chord, right? So we got to find D on the low E string. So I can just save you the time and just tell you that it's on the 10th fret of the low E string. That's D. You don't actually have to play that. This is just how you find where it is, right? And then we're going to do the exact same thing. So when it comes time to play the 4 chord, you can do this. Same exact thing, right? Same exact pattern, but just in a different place on the neck. So I moved up to the 10th fret here. And then, so the D7 triad would be from the 10th fret on the D string, 11th fret on the G, and then the 10th fret on the B string. There you go. And I'll slide in from a fret below, right? To give it that slidey sound. And then we're going to do another slidey, right? We're going to change positions, right, to the next chord form. And then we're going to slide from when we're starting on 10, 9, and 10, right? And then we're sliding up to 12, 11, and 12, and then back down to 10, 9, and 10. Okay? And you'd be playing the exact same thing, but over the D7 chord, right? And then next, the 5 chord, which would be E7, we're going to do the same exact thing. The same exact thing. We're going to find E on the low E string. Now, we know the open low E string is, obviously, the note is E. But it would be a lot better to find the octave here. So the 12th fret of the low E string is another E note, right? And since we're already up here with D, may as well bring it on up here. Right? Because essentially we can't really play it in the open position, so that doesn't even matter. We can throw that away. We're playing it over the 5 chord. We're going to start with the 12th fret, right, on the low E string. Then we're going to slide in. So we're going to slide in with our E7 triad chord shape, right? Starting on 12, 13, and 12. But we're sliding in from a fret below that. All right? Then we're going to, right, invert it. Then we're on 12, 11, 12, and we're going to slide up to 14, 13, and 14. Then back to 12, 11, 12. Same exact thing. All right? And so now you have that comping, position over all 3 chords in the progression in a 12-bar blues. Okay, now so let's kind of simulate. If you're going to be working with another guitar player and they're taking care of the cowboy blues riff, right? I'm going to kind of run a little simulation where I'm going to play the kind of the open string bass notes, right, to that rhythm, and then play the jazz comp thing on top of it, just to show you how it would sound all together. So here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Woo, that was not easy, but hopefully that painted the picture for you, right? When you have that rhythm going, bum, 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 then on top of it you go, da-dum, da-dum, bum, da-dum, da-dum, bum, 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 right? It just works. It's cohesive. It's great. So when you're in that type of situation, it's kind of cool too, because if you're in a situation with another guitar player and you start to bust out the comping stuff, the band's going to like you a little bit better. They're going to be like, oh, that's some highbrow stuff. I like what you're doing there, you know? So it's another fun way to just kind of stand out a bit, you know? Again, it's not a complicated thing. We're just borrowing the idea from jazz. Now, let's talk about, if you want to, ways that you can make it, you know, really jazzy by the way you play it. One thing that comes to mind is if you want to do the Wes Montgomery thing, right, where you're just using just your thumb, right, and you're just giving it like... just a really gentle strum with the thumb, right? And that's how you get that really, you know, very jazzy, very smooth Wes Montgomery kind of sound. That's one way you can do it. Another way is, I mean, you can finger pick it too, you know, like I actually really enjoy finger picking this type of comping stuff, you know? So what I'm doing is I have my thumb, I'm assigning my thumb to the D string, my first finger to the G string, and then my third finger to the B string. And I'm just kind of like, you know, pinching the strings, and just as I just kind of play the chords, I just kind of pinch the strings and pluck them. You can even like change it up a little bit if you want. You know, just add all kinds of dynamics. That's the cool thing, is like you can play the same thing with your fretting hand, but then with your picking hand do different things, and it gives it a whole new dimension of dynamics. It's great. Now, just so you know, the reference material for this lesson is going to be in the description box, so you can click that link, and you'll see the tabs for everything we just learned. I wanted this to be just a nice, quick, simple, but really strong and effective lesson to give you some new concepts when you're playing your blues rhythm guitar. And trust me, when you bust this out at your next jam, you're going to be getting the stank face. People are going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's tasty." That's the highest compliment you can receive as a guitar player. Trust me. You'll also find I have a gift for you in the description box, a free download for a blues solo heat map. This is going to show you how to make red hot killer blues solos and know how to use the notes to really sound like a pro. It's going to be the perfect accompaniment, pun intended, right, with the new rhythm techniques that you just learned. And that just about does it for this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie Haddad with Guitar Mastery Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.